Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's been, well, let's start with the announcement you made a couple of weeks ago. I think we have to start here. So the shot at going back to multi-events indoors, unfortunately short-lived for you. It got a lot of people excited, I'm sure yourself as well. So what are your feelings since the injury? What kind of injury is it? How are things looking in terms of going into the next indoor season in terms of just, doing the day job?
Yeah, I was hoping that I would actually get to do a pentathlon before I had to say that I was done with it. But it was really, really short-lived. I felt like I'd only just told everybody I was doing it, and then I had to announce that I wasn't. And even though it seems like something that should just have been there for a bit of fun, I'm really gutted that I can't do it. Combined events is where I started in athletics. It's the reason I wanted to do athletics. As a kid, that was what I was passionate about. That's how I trained. And I had started to feel like that athlete, like that person again. I was having so much fun. I was really loving it. And so now that I can't do it, I'm actually really gutted. Really sad about it. It's not a big injury. I think after rupturing my Achilles, injuries just sort of fly off my back. Like, it's whatever. If it's a few weeks, if it's 3, 4, we're not sure exactly. I've damaged something in my calf. But it's not major. The injury itself, I'll rehab that, whatever. It's the fact that it's pretty much put an end to the idea that I could do a pentathlon now or ever, because clearly my body, I can't. I wasn't doing anything particularly strenuous. I was coming around the high jump curve, just doing like 5-step scissor kicks, and just felt my calf. And having enjoyed the training that much to now it be completely off the table has kind of knocked the wind out of me a little bit, which I don't think makes that much sense, or won't make that much sense to everyone. But it's got me.
No, I think it makes sense to me that, like, as an athlete, you're always kind of making plans and getting invested in something, like whatever it is. And when that gets disrupted, it is disorientating and frustrating, because it's, you don't go after something unless you're excited about it and passionate. And I'm wondering, that kind of pursuit of the pentathlon, are there some sort of training, general athleticism sort of goals you were hoping would then complement your long jump that you can keep going at? Is there sort of elements you can keep having fun with that will come out in the summer in the long jump?
I need to talk to Aston about it, my coach, because I wasn't doing it with the thought of, like, well, this and this will make my long jump better. It was more, Aston let me do it because he didn't think it would make my long jump worse.
Okay.
I just really wanted to do it. I've wanted to forever. Every coach I've had, I've always kind of nagged to let me go back to do combined events in some form. And it was finally happening, and now it's over.
So did Aston take a lot of persuading? I mean, he's a pretty mellow guy. Like,
he kind of thought, well, he didn't think I was going to get hurt doing it, but I think he was all for it because the general conditioning that we do for long jump wasn't too far away from the conditioning for pentathlon. It's just that we had to obviously add the event specific stuff in, which is clearly what's gotten me in the end. He was all for it, and it surprised me kind of how for it he was. I think he was looking forward to the challenge of seeing what he could do with me, how much I could improve from what I used to do in pentathlon. We're talking when I was like 16, 17 years old. I haven't done this for so long that it was an interesting pursuit, I think. But I don't think I'll be able to convince him to let me keep anything after this outcome. So no, back to long jump, back to just one event, and hopefully I'll just have a full indoor season, as long as this clears up as we're expecting it to.
Well, how long were you thinking about doing it before you made the decision? I'm just wondering what the build up was in terms of building up your body to be ready for it again. I realize you obviously seem very, very disappointed that you can't do what you really wanted to do. But I mean, is there a way with a sort of longer sort of build, knowing that's coming? I mean, you tell us how long it'd been on your mind for.
Well, it'd been on my mind probably since I last did one.
Okay. So, I mean, okay. So more rephrasing it. When was the point where you realised you put this to us and he said, I really want to do it. Can I do it?
So during last season. So last season, he actually agreed and said, I can. And then I still didn't quite believe it until mid-off season, he texts me saying, are you still serious about this pentathlon? Because I'm writing the programs.
Okay.
I love it.
So we've known since last season. I think I'm not messed up my off season. I disrupted my own off season by doing Athlos in the middle of what I thought was my break.
Okay.
I'd already stopped training by the time I got the call to say, do you want to come to Athlos? And I did. I'd been trying to get into that all year. And so went for it, and then had a little more time off after that. When I look at it on reflection, could I have maybe kept in touch with more things, loaded my body a bit more? Yes, but I needed the proper break. Before last year, I hadn't had a break in over 18 months because I was rehabbing all through for my Achilles before that. So I did need those few weeks to not be training. So I don't think there was any really good answer. Maybe I needed 2 weeks to build into it, but then that wouldn't give me enough time to get ready for a pentathlon in January, which is the only time I could do one because of then going back to do long jump indoors. So it didn't work out. I don't think we could have managed it in any majorly different way. I am sorry to anyone who wanted to see how it was going to go, because so did I.
We're not
But
going to
this
see
is
you
gonna
do
be-
a one-off other event then in January. You're not just going to come and do a shot put for fun or anything.
I mean, that's down to Aston.
Okay.
If I was allowed, I would be there in a heartbeat doing something else. I would love to. I don't think he's going to be willing to take those risks now.
Yeah. I genuinely want to say, though, when you look at elite sport and the willingness of a coach to take an athlete of your age and stage and talent and capability and say, yeah, fine, if this is something you are passionate about, I will support it. I don't know if you'd get many elite coaches giving an athlete that leeway and that freedom. And I don't know, is that important to you at this stage in your career, to be able to be in control of your journey and just be supported in how you want to thrive rather than kind of dictated to?
Yeah, I agree. It's probably quite rare. And it's been actually quite an interesting adjustment for me since I've been with Aston, because he takes the things I say very seriously and he considers what I think about things. And he does that with all of his athletes. And I think I didn't, when I joined him, expect to be taken quite so seriously. So sometimes I will complain about the program because that's what athletes do. And oh, it's too hard, it's too many reps, and you go, okay, well, do you want to change it? And I go, no, don't listen to me. I just want to moan about it. I'm going to do it. So it's been a bit of an adjustment, so that when I do say something like, I really want to do pentathlon, he's not just going to brush it off as, oh, whatever, athletes say things. He's going to consider it and go, okay, how could we make this work for you? And yeah, at this stage in my career, I think when I came to him already an experienced athlete, knowing myself, knowing my body, he takes that seriously, and he trusts that I've gotten this far. I'm the only consistent throughout my entire career. So I've been here the whole time. I've had different coaches, I've had different physios and different people as part of my team, but I've been the one constant, and he puts a lot of faith in that, which I really appreciate. Although sometimes I do still have to go to him like, please tell me what to do. I think I'm actually better just being told, because it kind of frees up your own mind as an athlete when you're able to put like complete trust in your coach to just tell you things. It frees my mind up to just perform, and to just put effort in rather than be considering how and why, which is good for me.
No, it's that whole paralysis by analysis, isn't it? The
Yeah.
older you get, the more you know, the more you get in your own head. You need someone to punch through and just tell you. And you kind of answered it there slightly when you talked about your history with different coaches. And yeah, I guess one question was going to be, if you'd had this coaching style from Aston, say 10 years ago, do you think it would have worked? And then also these different coaching environments you've been in some fantastic environments. I was kind of curious, like what did you take from those environments? Are there any big learnings or big red flags that you didn't like, that didn't suit you?
I'll start with the 10 years ago, kind of, would this have worked with Aston? I don't think I knew enough about being an athlete to have been given the kind of control that Aston gives me now 10 years ago, but I don't think he would have given it to me then. So the younger athletes who are still finding their feet in elite sport, he doesn't give the same kind of freedoms to. He's much more likely to dictate a session to a 21-year-old athlete in the group than he is to myself at 31. And I think he would probably have had the foresight at that time not to give it to me. I was, 10 years ago, you shouldn't give me any personal responsibility. Tell me what to do, please. So I don't think this would have worked, but I don't think he'd have done it.
Mm-hmm.
I have been in a whole load of different environments. I've trained one-on-one. I've trained in a big group where I've been the only long jumper. I've trained in the combined events group. I think the most useful thing that I've learned from training in so many different environments is that there is no one way to the top. And I think at certain points in my career, I've been looking for, quote unquote, the way. I've been looking to find the exact formula to be the best. And I have watched Olympic and world champions over and over do it in such vastly different ways that I've let go of the idea of there being a way. You just have to figure out how to get the best out of yourself. And that means so many, and it's so annoying and it's such a cop-out answer. You know, people, especially young athletes, want to know how to do it. You see people succeeding and you go, okay, tell me what you did. And you could copy that absolutely to a T and it won't be the same thing. You know, I've seen certain athletes who, once training starts, are so locked in, they basically remove themselves from social situations, and that's the only way they can be successful. I've seen others who act like athletics doesn't exist when the weekend comes. And I've seen both of them win global titles. And so I think it actually quite helped me to know that it's not that I've been doing, quote unquote, the wrong thing. It's that I've been on the journey to finding my version of it. And the only other thing is that also in certain spaces, and it's been very good for me to internalize this, excellence is expected. Mm-hmm. And I think when you start to, you have to be comfortable celebrating small things, but also expecting them to be bigger. You know, there's been environments I've been in where you will not get any kind of pat on the back for making a team or even for making a final. You will get your pat when you're on the podium and you'll get a proper thumbs up when you're at the top of the podium. And I think when everyone around you expects that, you start to expect it of yourself. And you take that not only to training, but you take it into everyday life. And I think that's a really good mindset shift that some people don't realize they need.
What kind of character are you then in terms of needing that constant feedback?
The feedback from the coach.
Yeah, in terms of, you know, when you get the pats on the back, you know, because I mean, every coach will know that they've got to treat every athlete differently. So as you've gone on in your relationship with the sport,
yeah.
So what do you find that you really need? And not just, we talked about the freedom and you know, knowing your own body, but what do you feel like you really need? What do you respond to best?
I think I do need quite a lot of positive encouragement. I think me and Aston have had to have a number of conversations, which he's always very open to, where if we're doing a technical session and he tells me a cue and I do it right, he doesn't tell me that I've done it right. He tells me the next thing I did wrong. And to me, that it becomes infuriating. You know, he'll say, okay, drive the left knee more at takeoff. And I go and I do my jump and I drive the left knee more at takeoff. And he goes, you need to keep your feet together at landing. Cool. That's not what we were doing. I was focused on the thing that you were talking about. But he's not criticizing. To him, he's going, yep, you did what I asked because I don't brought it up again. I don't need to bring it up again because it's done. Whereas I have said to him, please, could you, before you just give me that next bit of feedback, could you just say, left knee was good and now we'll move on. And that's very personal. You know, some people are going to look at that and go, that's pathetic. You shouldn't need that. But I work best when I get it. Yeah. And I'm happy to be in an environment with Aston where I can ask for that.
No, and that was like patting that inner perfectionist on the shoulder, isn't it? Saying, you achieved that. Now next. And just for anyone that's listening that doesn't know, Aston Moore, tremendous coach, triple jump medalist for Commonwealth Games for Britain, for England in the past. Coached Ashley Hansen, Philip Sadori, Kelly Southerton. Like, he knows what he's doing. I'm just conscious we've spoken about a guy that people might not know.
Yes.
My favourite Aston moment from recent years with you was when you jumped 7 meters in Istanbul and won the European title. And Aston just like cracked a small smile. You know, it's like, you know, it was such an amazing performance. And I'm sure he was very happy for you. But at the same time, he's like, well, it's just part of it, isn't it? You know, he's kind of like, whatever.
He's very hard to surprise.
Yeah.
He, because he pays attention so closely to what's going on when you're training and competing, you know, that 7 meter jump didn't come as a surprise to him. He had a little laugh. I think he was laughing at me and my reaction. But that wasn't a huge moment for him because he was expecting it. One of the great things about Aston as a coach is he's so level. He doesn't go too far in either direction. You know, it can be a nightmare and he's not going to lose it, and it can be absolutely incredible and he's not going to lose it. So he is this absolute constant. It was him at Europeans. When I jumped 7 in round 5, so I had another round to go, and you know, there were people very capable of coming past me. He was the one that told me, he's like, stop it, go over there, you're still competing, like you need to calm down now. And his kind of steady level-headedness is something that that's not me, and so it's very useful to have somebody right there that's going to bring that.
Well, and the other thing you mentioned there in my question about these environments you've been in is that what people do off the track. And you do stand out from the crowd as an athlete that has a lot of interests away from the field, from the runway. You know, I'd love to delve into those and you know, how much of that is to relieve the pressure and the stress of being a high performing athlete, and how much of it is, you know, future planning. There's a lot of you've started looking into that media world, into sort of commercial stuff, and you know, how do you balance those external kind of habits and passions with the intensity of training?
So the first part of the question, none of it, to me anyway, is consciously about relieving pressure from the sport side of things, nor maybe the last sort of year or so it's consciously been a little bit of future planning. But generally the reason I do other things is because I like other things. And you can only train so many hours a day. If I sit at home and just think about training for the rest of those hours, I'm just going to lose it. In order for me to be the happiest version of myself, I need to be doing other things. And I have so many other interests that just seems obvious to me to be. You know, when I was younger, I was singing a lot more. I was going around performing. I was finding places to record music and do shows. Now I do a lot more hosting and on the media side of things, and sewing, which is, you know, these are all things that I've picked up just to try them. Generally, when an opportunity presents itself, I like to just have a go and find out if I like it. And I sort of started doing that really, really young. And I was always encouraged, my parents have always encouraged me to just try things. You know, people often ask athletes whether they had pushy parents. And I say I was a pushy child. I wanted to do so much that if anything, they were encouraging, but sometimes they'd be like, do you want to maybe chill and do like a touch less? So, you know, it was never them pushing me towards other things. I do think it has had the effect of relieving stress from the sort of elite sport environment. I think being able to completely switch off from the intensity of elite sport and pour your brain power into something else is a really useful thing, because it takes you away from it for a minute. It can be all consuming if it's all you do. And I think I've talked about this being true for a long time, and I've never had to test it out until 2024, when I ruptured my Achilles and I had to find out what a whole year without competing would look like. You know, I'd never ever done that. It was a really important year. It was the Olympics. I felt like I was just coming into the shape of my life. I jumped 7 meters the year before. It felt like my moment, and then I couldn't compete. And so I had to put into action everything I've been preaching about, saying, you know, you've got to have a life outside of sport. You've got to be a person outside of sport. It's important. And honestly, I think it saved that year for me, because I didn't spend the year miserable about my injury. I was upset. Of course I was upset, but I was able to just go at 80% at something that I previously had to have sitting at 10%. You know, I was able to get involved in commentary. I was able to do a lot more hosting. I really threw myself into the other passions that I'd been kind of quietly cultivating alongside athletics, while athletics couldn't be the number one thing. And for some people, that would be a turning point moment where you'd go, okay, well, I'm enjoying this more. For me, it was kind of the opposite. It just solidified how much I wanted to be back on the track, but it meant I didn't lose my mind that year. It wasn't everything. It was the most important thing. And it was still devastating for it to happen, but it didn't knock my sense of self, because I had so many other parts of who I am.
Yeah, because it's really more relieving mental pressure of, like, for your own mental health, really, rather than what your sporting performance. Because I'm interested, talking from the point of view as someone who is not an elite athlete or never has been. So just the two of you, do you think that is the sort of approach that the majority of athletes have in terms of being able to like find other passions and not be too locked in? Or is it, I mean, to me, it seems like something that is a general life thing, in that as you get older, most people just can sort of relax a little bit more. You find yourself a bit more, you find where your other interests are. But there's other athletes, you know, reading books and listening to interviews where they're so locked in for their entire career, and it gets to like their mid to late 30s and it's, I can't do this anymore. And they're asked, well, you know, what is it about it? Like, the pressure's too much. I'm too locked in. This is my life. And it doesn't seem like that's the case for you, Jazz. So I just wonder whether you think it's something that most athletes, more athletes are like you, or, and Hannah, I guess the same question to you, really. What do you see on the tour? I'm just fascinated to know what people's sort of characters are. I know everyone's different, but the majority.
Yeah, that was going to be my question too, Jazz. Like, do you think professional athletes, whether it's in athletics or other sports in our country, are encouraged to cultivate that kind of persona off the track, or that identity off the track? Because, yeah, I mean, I'd love to know what you think. I think they're not. I think we're shown this dedicated image of, you know, every second of your day must be towards that Olympic final. And anything outside of that is blasphemy and diluting your... Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if the culture's slightly different maybe than I was involved in that sort of 2012 bonanza.
Yes.
I don't know. It's a bit different, a bit intense.
I think it's changing. I would say that the sort of prevailing thought is still the intensity, but I think especially with athletes' own ability to show what their day-to-day life is like now on social media, I think people have probably been doing more than we knew about for longer than we've known about, but now we can see it.
Fair.
And I think when younger athletes see successful athletes doing that, they go, oh, it's actually okay to be a person outside of just this, because there is still, and me growing up and watching athletics, I had the sense that the right thing to do was to be absolutely 100% blinkers on, nothing else. This is the only thing that matters. You've only got X amount of years in your career, so just do this flat out until you can't anymore. And the thing is it can work. And so it's not that is completely wrong. The issue, if I'd have been like that my entire career, when I ruptured my Achilles in 2024, it would have broken me. Because what else is there? If that is the only thing that has ever mattered to me, and the only way that I can feel successful and feel valuable and feel worth something, then I don't know that I'd be here now progressing towards another Olympic Games, because I don't know how I'd have gotten through that year. It's so intense to be like that. And there are certain personalities where I do think it works for people. I think there are more people that would do better doing more. And I actually think when you get chatting to a lot of athletes nowadays, people have big interests outside of just their sport. But I don't think they all want to talk about it, because it makes them seem less dedicated. It makes them seem like they're not as serious, they're not as focused. And so I do think the overall message is still everything is about the sport. And, you know, I know, because people have spoken to me about it, that people think if I didn't do the other things that I do and I didn't have other interests, that I would be a better athlete. But I do kind of challenge people and go, well, how many hours a day do you think I can train?
Yeah.
When do you get challenged? When do you get challenged about that kind of thing, Jazz? On social media, on
social media for sure. But I've actually had conversations with former athletes, like older generation athletes, sort of like long before me, sort of in their 60s plus now, going, "You're distracted." And
you're like, the world's different.
But not even that. I just think, how long was your career? The world is different, but also, how long was your career? How long were you able to maintain this intensity? And most of the time, my career now, which I still think has a good 4 years left in it, is already longer than their entire career, because because I'm able to keep going. And you know, they're the ones that did manage to succeed, and so they look at it and go, well, that's the way to do it, because I was successful. But I wonder how many people were that intense, maybe had an injury at the wrong time, couldn't handle going again, and someone that might have later been a champion ended up dropping out of the sport because they couldn't deal with the intensity. We'll never really know, but I do think having other sides to yourself gives you an opportunity to stay for longer.
Yeah, I wonder what your event discipline and how the event you do, field athletes generally, so that kind of helps you in that, because I mean, from the outside again, you're looking at it, it's got a little bit more camaraderie. I'm not saying you all get on with each other. You have your rivals, and yeah, it's not everyone likes each other, but you do seem to have a more relaxed environment outside of actually taking your jumps. So I know you can be completely locked in when you need to go, but you're all very good at giving each other support if you want to give them support, maybe giving each other a little bit of a pointer here and there. And it happens across all the field events. And I just think, like, when you watch in the running disciplines, yes, people can look like they're showing their personalities, but they're really putting on a show. And when you see the field events, generally, it just seems like a lot more genuine. And it's all, you're actually able to show your personality a little bit more. And it just feels like you're given, it's almost like you're given more license to yourself to show other interests.
I think that's because we're just out there for longer. So to maintain the level of intensity that you see on a 100-meter start line for potentially 2 full hours would be so draining. If I was trying to be that intense as I am moments before I start running, if I was to bring that intensity to every moment that I'm out there, by round 4, I'd be dead.
Yeah.
It's not easy to be that intense. It doesn't flow. It drains energy.
Is that something you've always had, or did you ever get that wrong? Did you ever sort of feel as a youngster you had to be super intense every round?
Yeah, I've definitely got it wrong, because people, everyone's personality is different, and some people are more intense for the whole time. But I still think, on the whole, you're completely right. Field eventers are less intense for longer periods than track athletes. But when I was younger, I'm maybe a lot more relaxed in the kind of off moments than other people are. And as a kid, coaches and not necessarily other athletes, but lots of people kind of in the sport would say that I wasn't serious enough. So for a time, I started to be serious. But that was so inauthentic to me. Being serious, like, I take my sport seriously. And when I'm standing there on the runway, there's a level of intensity that I feel I need to bring to get the best out of myself. When I'm sitting down at my bag, I just don't see any reason to be doing that. I don't know why I would do that. And I tried it as a kid, and I'm just tired. And like, also, trying to be something that I'm not in those moments would use up all my energy. It would use up all the kind of willpower that I had that I should be focusing on the actual jumping. And I think over the years, I found a balance of, I know when to take myself away. I know how many jumpers before me I need to go, okay, it's time to lock back in.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And I always throw this quote in about my sports psych once said, when did professional become serious? Like, who decided that to be professional, you had to also be doom and gloom and serious? Like, it's a myth. It doesn't have to happen.
That's some people's personality. But for anyone that's ever met me, I'm not a very serious person. I'm having, my main priority most of the time is to be having fun. And ultimately, that's why I very first got involved in athletics, because it was fun. It looked fun when I was watching it on TV. It looked like they were all having a great time. I wanted to be having a great time too. And why would I do something that would make me enjoy it less? When I'm enjoying it less, I perform worse. And that's what I found when I tried to be too serious for the whole time I was out there. I started life as a combined eventer, and if you try and be serious for 2 full days, oh my God, and you're not a serious person, by the time the 800 comes around, you're just going to roll around on the floor. There's nothing left. It's
and that's not going to make for a good 800.
No. I really don't think so.
I want to go back to that Achilles injury, and I think it's really brilliant the insight you shared there. You think you were able to cope with it better, given the well-rounded sort of approach you've had to your sport. But our sport is cruel. Years and years and months of hard work can evaporate in one moment like that. And you've had issues in your career up until that point. But how much did that Achilles rupture kind of shake your core relationship with the sport, and how cruel it can be?
That's a good question. But I don't think it, for me, I think it strengthened it, if anything, because if I'm able to go through that at a time where I thought I had my best chance yet and still love this sport with everything I've got, then all that tells me is that I am exactly where I'm supposed to be. It is cruel. And it was one of those things that I, luckily, because I've seen and discussed Achilles ruptures before, you generally can't predict them. You generally can't prevent them. And it was just my time to have something bad happen. And it was a shame that it was then. But I don't know if I think I maybe underplay how important it was having Kat Johnson-Thompson right there the whole time I was going through my recovery, because I had proof every single day, like 5 meters away, that you can get through this and still achieve all your goals. And the year that I was rehabbing, she, on her fourth try, got an Olympic medal. And, you know, she had previously ruptured her Achilles. She was giving me advice through the whole thing. And so it didn't feel remotely like I might not make it back. I had such fleeting moments of doubt, and everybody around me would squash them so quickly that it never felt like something I couldn't come back from. And so, yeah, it felt cruel. The timing felt cruel, but it was more like for God's sake, have I got to wait 4 more years to do this, rather than, woe is me, this isn't going to happen. It was annoying, because I felt like I feel really strongly about what I'm capable of. And as soon as I felt like, and I had assurance that it was still possible, it was like, God, I've got to wait 4 years. But it never occurred to me to love athletics any less. It's everyone has something, right? At some point, you don't really hear of really sensational athletes that have never really been through anything big. And I think the way I felt about it at the time was like, okay, this is my thing. This is here I am. I've reached it. This is my big thing. And everybody who I've ever known who's achieved the things that I want to achieve has gotten through their big thing. So I guess that's what I'll do.
And well, and the way you came back was phenomenal, because I spoke to you. You won't remember this at all, probably, but at the British Champs, when you performed there and you came through the mix zone, and you said, and you'd done your was it your 680? Was it 689? 688? Well, 689 was it in Greece before that?
Yeah.
So and you were talking. We were talking generally about your comeback, and you said it's exceeded all expectations. That you looked at this as a build back year.
Yeah.
And at that point, you were saying, like, it's almost like you were saying, like, Tokyo, not as a bonus, but like, I didn't expect to be here. And then obviously you go to Tokyo, and that's what happens at Tokyo. And I imagine there's like almost a level of disappointment there as well. I wonder, when you then, a month on, or however long it took, when you sort of sum up this whole season altogether, just talking about how high you were only beginning of August, in terms of how you felt that you know, you were so far ahead of where you were meant to be. How do you look at the year as a whole?
It's so hard. I'm really trying to look at the year as a big success. I'm still having to sort of fight that internally. I'm really, really, really trying to, because it was like, objectively, managing to come back and jump that far and make it to Worlds and have a consistent season was a huge success. But there has to be the but. I failed at the moment that mattered most to me. And so I can't feel in me that the year was successful when I messed up at the one time where I needed to not mess up. Again, that was quite shaking to me, because I kind of was like, you've done all this work, you've put so much in, it's been so hard to get here. And it's not like my body didn't let me down. It's not like I wasn't capable. I'd proven all year that I was capable. And then I flopped, which is just, I basically choked, which I like to think I'm an athlete that doesn't tend to do that. But I had to sit there and look at the evidence kind of pile up and go, okay, well, you've done this a few times where you've had a small injury leading into a championship, which is what happened here. But I don't see that as an excuse. And then you weren't able to produce what you needed to on the day. And so ultimately, the reason I wanted to work so hard to come back is because I still believe I can win global medals. But to be the kind of athlete that wins global medals, you have to be able to perform in those difficult moments and not choke in those moments. And so that's why really struggled to see the year as overall successful, because in the one moment that I feel was a test of who I am as an athlete and who I need to be to hit my goals, I failed. And so if I was to just take the year as a success, I don't think I would learn appropriately from that.
Mm-hmm.
If I go, it doesn't matter because I had such a good year. If I go, well, Worlds, yeah, okay, you didn't make the final at Worlds, but look at everything else you did. How am I going to change what I did there to become the athlete I need to be this year, next year, in 2028? So I can't see it as a success because I still have work to do, because I have a huge amount of work to do in order to be the athlete that I think I can be and that I want to be.
That's what separates. That's what separates. Sorry, the elite with people who don't get to that level. But I'm just wondering, before you move on from that, if you at the start of the season, what would have been a success?
I don't think I thought about it enough, because making on my New Year's vision board, I had world final. So actually making the final was the goal. Obviously you have to break that down into smaller goals, and qualifying is one thing, and actually making the team and getting there and competing is a whole other thing. But if I'd have, the reason I say it had to be the final is in order to have put myself in a position to make the team, I knew I would have had to have jumped far enough to, if I could reproduce something around that jump, to make the final with it. So the only reason not to make the final is messing up. That's personal. That's something that I did wrong, because clearly you're capable of making it, because you wouldn't be here otherwise. The way the policy for GB is structured is, even if there's ways to get yourself in the ranking without jumping really, really far, but that wouldn't have got me a spot on the team. And so I knew I was capable. If I was making the team, I had to be good enough to make the final. And so it was always the final. I never set my my actual personal target. I never set it any lower than that. And I think I would have understood if I'd not been good enough to make the team, because I was still building from the Achilles rupture. If my body wasn't ready at that point to jump that far, that would have been fair enough. I'd have been disappointed, but not in myself. It would have been, the surgeon told me it would take 2 years, and that's okay. And I had set a goal and didn't make it, but I was good enough. I got myself to a position with the help of everybody in the team here to make that world final, and I personally failed. And so I'm very proud of what I achieved in the year, but I will not remove the way I feel about that, because I did fail. And it will, I think, forever to me be a disappointment.
Jazz, you've shown us such amazing elements of your personality already. The ability to deal with that horrible injury because of the balance you found out, and everything like that. But then this determination and these very high standards. Well, yeah, from the outside, I think I said to you, I think I saw you at one meet, and I was blown away by what you did last year. Absolutely blown away. And I understand, I totally understand your debrief there on the season, but I'm wondering, your age and stage and experience, how do you strike that balance between being ambitious but also being kind to yourself? Do you find enough time to, in that persistent drive for that global medal, to give yourself credit for the good things? Because, when you talk like that, it sounds like you're pretty harsh on yourself.
I am, and I actually don't think I have a very, a nice balance on that. But I also don't think I'd still be in the sport if I had a nicer balance, because I'd be satisfied, because I've done some amazing things. I've won a European indoor title. I've got a British indoor record. I've got Commonwealth and European medals outdoors. I have done so much. I've been to 2 Olympic Games and 5 World Championships now. I've done so much. And if I wasn't this harsh, I'd be satisfied. I'd just go. But because I've always known what I want, it's a trade-off. It means that I don't get to enjoy the things that I probably should be enjoying. I haven't had a nice time in the way that I should at any of the global championships that I've done, because in my mind, I've always underperformed. There's only one that I actually look at and go, I should have approached it differently. And that was my first Olympics in Rio. I finished 8th. I was 22. And I'd come off the back of winning a silver at Europeans earlier that year. 2 years prior, winning a silver at the Commonwealth Games. So all I knew in terms of major championships was medals. And naively, at that age, I thought, I'll figure it out. I'll find a way to win a medal, because that's what I'd done every other time. Every other time, I had no business being on the podium. Glasgow 2014, no business whatsoever. Amsterdam 2016, no business being on that podium, but I found a way. And so to me, that's what I do at championships. And so when I finished 8th, I almost couldn't believe it, because I thought, what happened? How did you not find a way? Now, being a lot older, I look back at that and go, that was an incredible success, and you really should have been happy with that. But every other one, I think I did let myself down. And so, but that's genuinely how I feel. I do sort of wish, or do I? I'm not even sure I do. I don't think I can say that. I was going to say that I wish I could accept a little bit less, but I don't think I'd go as hard. I don't think I would actually get myself even to the point where I was making these teams if I wasn't in pursuit of things bigger than this. And so the trade-off there is that I don't get to enjoy it when really I've achieved some really good things.
Mm-hmm.
But the past few years, I have tried to take moments each time I do something, like to actively and consciously go, like, soak this in for a sec before you get into your intensity mode, because I think I've completely ruined things for myself by being that intense before, where I don't enjoy anything afterwards because I'm so disappointed about how it's gone.
I think a lot of athletes talk about that as they get older, just enjoying taking the moment to try and enjoy that success a little bit more. And yeah, we hope there's lots more to come. We'll talk about the future in just a moment. Can we go back a bit? And we'll try and lift the mood a little bit. But look, because we've already touched upon the fact that you're multi-talented. You're like, seems like you're that girl at school, Jazz, that can do everything. So many strings to your bow. You've talked about the music. You're a law graduate. You had a spell in bobsleigh too, and that's topical because we're heading into the Winter Olympics soon. And actually, Britain's leading women's team right now are 2 track and field athletes, in Adele Nicol and Ashley Nelson. Why is it such a transferable skill, and what did you really enjoy? Did you enjoy it?
I loved it. It's scary, and I think that's what I really enjoyed. It's like, it genuinely, every time you get in, you're like, oh, what's going to happen here? And you don't have that with many sports where there's an actual fear element. And when you get to the bottom cleanly, it's this genuine wave of relief and excitement. And there's a thrill to it that you don't get with every sport. I think, a lot of winter sports are like that, where it's dangerous, and so it's exciting. I loved it. I loved how it's a team. Obviously now there's monobob, so you can do it on your own. But when I was doing bobsleigh, it was just the team element, and I really enjoyed. I think I'd find a team sport with sort of 10, 11 people really difficult, but with one other person where you can grow to trust one person and rely on them, and they can rely on you. I really enjoyed that. Having been in individual sports my entire life up to that point, I found it that the skills transfer so well, especially from long jump, because as a break woman, you're basically doing, this is going to sound silly, but you're doing the same thing. You run for 30 meters and you jump in.
Nice.
And, when I first got involved in bobsleigh, I did so because the tests for whether or not you could make the team or make the squad were 30-meter sprint, standing long jump, a standing vertical jump. That was my bread and butter. The actual physicality of it is really similar to athletics. Athletics, I feel, is the base of movement along with gymnastics, but ultimately you're running, you're using your body to go as fast as you possibly can. Most sports have an element of all the bits of athletics, and so bobsleigh just felt like a really direct transference of that. And when I first did bobsleigh, I was still a heptathlete. And actually, only dropped down to the long jump for what I thought was going to be one season, because it felt like the most like bobsleigh. Run for 30 meters, jump in, and one of them you're pushing something kind of heavy, you're on the ice, whatever. It's the same. So if you're if you strong, say so, fast, powerful, you can transfer that skill really, really well.
Do you miss that adrenaline rush? Is it something you're tempted to ever get back into again? Like you say, it's scary. It looks it. I think a lot of people would say, I'd love to have a go in it, but then they probably get to the top and they just think, no, I'm not going down. I'm not going down there at all. Do you fancy going back to bobsleigh or
Yeah, I'd love to.
or
I'd love
another
to.
pushing event like a skeleton, luge.
Luge, I feel like it's so skillful. It's so like feet first is really scary.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
maybe too scary even for somebody that said
Skeleton
that
head
that's what I
first
liked about.
isn't as scary.
I don't know. For some reason, it just isn't. You can see where you're going.
Yeah, I guess so.
And the idea of like falling off, I don't think you can fall off in the same. I don't know. Skeleton just seems like scary, but okay. And I'm right there. The ice is only right. There's nowhere for me to go. The ice is this far away. I would love to go back to bobsleigh. I really enjoyed it when I was part of it. I only stopped because I felt like I needed to focus on one thing to become the best at it. And if I looked at it, I can probably go back to bobsleigh. I probably can't do bobsleigh and then go back to athletics. So I did it this way around, and I thought I'd probably have achieved what I wanted by now and would be at the stage where I'd be looking at maybe going back to bobsleigh, but I haven't, and I can't leave it alone. So I won't be going back anytime soon, but it's not off the cards.
Yeah, I mean, because you said I can't remember how many years you said you feel like you've got to give this sport a really big go. I think you said 3 or 4 years or something like that. And I just wonder whether you think it could really extend your elite sporting career, a lot further than I guess track and field can.
Yeah, I think it can. It's the sort of injuries you can pick up doing bobsleigh. It's all very different, but people are able to go for longer, seemingly in bobsleigh. And I would love the idea that it could extend my elite sport life. I love this. Competing is just my favorite thing in the world. It's so fun, and actually, the thought of at some point I won't be able to do that anymore is really sad. So yeah, I hope I can go back if the circumstances allow. If I'm still fast enough, strong enough, fit enough, I would like to try.
That would be so cool. There was like yet another chapter to your. But I want to, we've taken a lot of your time and you're training hard and this, that, and the other. If we just go to a couple of topics to finish. First one I want to do is innovation in athletics. And I feel as a long jumper, there are so many topics and I don't know. Do you want to choose where to start? You kick us off. Long jump.
Hannah, they mess with us so much. They mess with us. It's always long jump. Leave us alone for a sec. Okay. I really do see the need. I see the attempt to innovation. I get it. But what I don't appreciate is when we're told when the press release says we consulted athletes. And what that was a meeting where everything the athletes said was ignored. So yeah, technically you did consult you did tell us, but that doesn't mean you listened. That doesn't mean anything. You don't actually get to say that when no one was listened to. When people get to watch field events up close and get to experience the story of a field event final, they're not bored.
No.
And the problem then for me is not the way that field events are, it's the way that field events are shown to people. And I don't have the answer for that. Okay, I understand that the schedule in athletics is packed, that something needs to be different in order to tell the story properly. But to say that people just are bored and don't like it, they're bored and don't like it because you show nothing for an hour and a half and then we get to see the top 3 jumps. That's boring.
Yep.
If you're tuning in for the first time and you go, here's the person that won, here's the person that came second, here's the person that came third. Imagine you did that with a race and you had everyone go one at a time and you went that run, him on his own, that was faster than everybody else and that's the winner. Yeah. It's objectively boring. You don't get the beauty of a field event when that's how it's presented. And I understand the challenges. There are challenges. There's not time to do it the way that we would love it to be done.
Do you feel like your experience with TV work in the last sort of 18 months, particularly that part where you were injured, where you were involved more, did it give you more sympathy to kind of the innovations that have been suggested or make you even more frustrated in the way it was being shown? Yeah?
It made me more frustrated.
Fair. That's very fair.
Because I felt, but then this is me coming from an athlete perspective, but I felt that time gets wasted when actually what we could be doing is making the sport more appealing to everybody. And instead we're wasting time. I was on the radio arguing. I don't know. I should not be arguing. It's my first big job, and I'm there arguing with producers, trying to tell them what's going on and what we're missing, because in their experience, showing something else is better. But I just can't wrap my head around it. I can understand why people want to innovate, but I just don't. I think we're going too far in the wrong direction and trying to completely change what the sport is instead of how we show it. But there's just nothing that I could do. I tried really hard to make the case for a lot of the field events. I tried to say that I can explain it in a concise way. I can tell the story quickly. I can, there's so many things that I can do to help it to be more exciting. And a lot of the time they would rather just not show it. Mm-hmm. And I go, okay, well then all I can do for now is win, because they can't ignore it if I'm winning.
Yeah.
Especially, on domestic TV, the only way to get on and to get more of the event shown is if you're expecting me to win. So you move over to the long jump because you see, and I actually think that's the only thing in my power for the time being, because when athletes are consulted, we're not listened to. So that's not in my power. No ideas. I've tried to throw back more like different, more interesting ideas to the innovations that are put forward. But what I'm seemingly finding out is once money has been spent on developing an idea, it's not going to get changed.
But you're talking about, we had this conversation all the time. We had to be quite careful as commentators who are employed by different people to sort of criticize, but we do feedback a lot and that's one of the reasons why we started this podcast, because we don't get to tell stories enough, and we don't get to follow events properly and follow a narrative to go through not just a session, but and the season generally. I think we had the luxury sometimes of at the World Athletics events, we get to just call just one field final, and you just stuck on one for an hour and a half of dedicated coverage, and that's the way to properly tell a story. You can get really into it, but obviously you can't do that all the time.
Of course.
I sort of wonder a lot of the time whether we're just packing too much into one session, that we're sort of hopping around one to the other, and then you never get to really figure out what's going on unless it's like I don't know, the
10,000 that they're showing.
I think the vertical jumps are easier to jump to when you know big things happening, because they have to clear that height. It's difficult in the horizontal jumps because you don't know where the big jump is coming. But that's why I sometimes wonder whether, if that is a field final that's on that night, a long jump or a triple jump, does there need to be like another field event going on elsewhere? Does the schedule need to? Because it's a broadcast product. That's the whole point. It has to look good on TV. Otherwise, the fans are going to go. We need to have more opportunities to keep on jumping back and forth to that final. Otherwise, you don't have that narrative at all. And sometimes I think that is one of the most simplest ways of doing things, is just stripping it back, not innovating, just less. Like less, so you can actually take in the full drama of that sport, and you're not missing anything really. You're not missing the big jumps. You're not missing the big race.
Yeah,
I don't know. That sometimes it feels like innovation for innovation's sake, when actually all you need to do is take a step back. The issue with that, sorry, I'm just going on a rant now, because the counter of that is it's fine for a world feed to do that, and that's lots of people listening to this saying, what is a world feed? Well, most of the time, you're watching any sporting event, a host broadcaster is providing the pictures, which is going out to the whole world, and people take it and they do what they like with it. And you can chop in your own replays. You can go back to a studio. You can go to your own commentators, do some analysis. And I guess the problem is that you might make that product work, but the broadcasters don't have to do it. And so that in the end, for the best will in the world that you're trying to create these gaps, people will just fill it in a different way. So I guess.
Well, I mean, the British
argument.
Like BBC, well, they probably would show the men's pole vault because of Mondo. But if you haven't got an interest in that from your nation, they're just not going to show it, and then it's a less attractive product. We end up making a bland, attractive to all product, and then the field events get the brunt of get sort of So we have just ranted at Jazz.
No, because we are very passionate about it as well, because we've had the same frustrations, you know.
Well, we said one thing, Jazz. I don't know if you would have been aware of it. The very last evening in Tokyo, the men's discus final. There was a rain delay. It happened all on its own. It was the most entertaining thing you'll ever see. like 12 men whistling through a discus final.
Speed discus, yeah.
It was phenomenal. The emotions, the drama, every step, every spin, every slip, whatever was there. And you just kind of saying that if that's not a showcase for give a platform to a field final, I don't know what is.
I really am with you. I can't disagree. I don't know how, instead of trying that and giving it a bit more space, we need to completely change it. Why would we not try that first? That's cheaper. It's easy. I don't understand why we have to jump to, well, now here's some wacky new rules. Why?
Yeah. You're running and jumping as far as you can into a sandpit. From a fixed point, like that is impressive enough. There was one thing innovation I saw recently about reducing the time on the runway. Because we can cut to the runway and you're looking for someone for a minute, you don't know when they're going to jump, whereas if you cut to them for maybe 15 seconds and they've got less time it's hard on the athlete but easier on the TV product. Is that an okay innovation? Is that
15 seconds I think is a little too short, but at one point we did do a cut down to 30 seconds and we all lost it. Of course we would. I think we should revisit it, and I think sometimes we do have to kind of do some compromising. I would much prefer to chop our runway time in half and actually get things moving. But then when we ask World Athletics, where does most of the time go? Guess where most of the time goes?
Replays.
Raking.
Oh, no.
That's what takes the most time in a horizontal jump. Is raking. So, actually, when you're saying it takes too long, you're blaming us and saying we're boring. The raking is what's taking most of the time.
Yeah.
So you can't even start the clock on the next person because raking takes forever. Why don't we look at that? Why don't we, especially for a major championship, why aren't we doing the robot thing that just zooms it across? I know that they exist. I've seen them. They were doing that in Beijing 2008.
Yeah.
So you have it. You can do it. It's like they won't face the most obvious problem head on. We genuinely, that was a question that was asked. What takes up the most time during a field event, horizontal field event final, raking the pit?
Yeah.
Can we address that? Because if it's 15 seconds on the runway, we're still probably going to have a minute of raking. So it's not actually going to speed that much up. You're just going to annoy the athletes.
Yeah. What about format changes? When Athlos, you were talking about Athlos earlier on, how you wanted to get into that, which looks like a phenomenal event, and getting to jump in Times Square, and then the format of the where jumps don't carry over. Is that how it works? So you have to qualify for the next round, essentially. Do you find that quite fun in terms of maybe like as a for an event like that, but you wouldn't want to see it in a major championship, or just playing with it?
Exactly
that's the right forum to be playing around with things?
Right. To me, exactly. It's the forum where you are putting on a showcase. We're there to entertain. Ultimately, we had a briefing about that before, where we want to put on a bigger show as possible, and the athletes go into it knowing that's what it is. And so, I think that's the perfect time to do some format changes. I'm not totally against it under all circumstances. But the idea of long jump becoming take off wherever you feel like as long jump is crazy to me. I'm not against it for certain moments. It's when it kind of becomes this overall, this is how we fix the problem of long jump. I disagree. I don't think that is the way. I think there are appropriate times and places for format changes in general. I'm not so traditionalist that I don't think anything can ever be changed under any circumstances. But I think there's a reason that people still enjoy watching major championships. Major championships, when they are shown, do great because it works. We actually don't have to mess with all that. Everybody's parents are fans of the athletes from when they were watching. So it's not like
the stakes are high enough, aren't they? That's enough.
Yeah. No, and we have, Rich and Katie and I have debated this on the podcast, off the podcast, not on air, because like we said, we've got a job to do there. But athletics is a phenomenal
sport. Unless on the podcast, and we to a level we can.
Athletics is a wonderful sport. Don't mess with it, just show it better. But if we look forward for you, we're going into 2026. It's an incredibly exciting year for British athletes. Commonwealth Games, Europeans. Silver in Glasgow in 2014 was one of your breakthrough moments in your career. what are you thinking about when you look towards those Commonwealth Games back in Glasgow? Yeah, and I guess just the aims for the whole season.
I just want to win things. I really, really do. And I think it's time for me to just start doing that, to be honest. I look at Glasgow in 2014 and we're now so far past that. And if you'd have told me then at 20 years old, like, you still won't have won this thing by the time you're 31. God, I'd have been annoyed. I would have had a go at the me that was telling the younger me that, because what have you been doing then? So I want to win. Ultimately, I want to go to both championships, ideally, and win them both. And I think I'm good enough for that. Commonwealths in 2022 is the closest I've come to leaving the sport, because I really felt I gave my absolute best. I had everything was on my side. It was a home championship. We were in Birmingham. The weather was perfect. I was in good shape. I jumped the furthest I'd ever jumped legally in a championship final, and I still came fourth. And I thought, if I'm right here and I've given everything I have to give and I still can't medal, what am I doing? And it was the fact that I was already selected for Europeans afterwards, and that I didn't want to withdraw a commitment that I'd made, that kind of saved that, because I went to Europeans and I ended up winning a medal. And, it was my first medal in 6 years. I kind of got the belief back that I actually could do that. And so I want my own personal Commonwealth Games redemption, because I think I'm capable of it, and I would like to sort of prove to that version of me that you really shouldn't. I'm glad you didn't quit, because to me the reason to quit would be, okay, I actually don't think I can hit the goals that I want to hit, because I wasn't, like I said to you guys before, I'm not here to be there. I really want to hit those goals, and in that moment it felt like it wasn't possible. Now I think it is, and so I want to feel like I felt when I got silver at Glasgow 2014, but with gold. It's also now there's kind of no Achilles quote unquote excuse anymore. I had the year where it was supposed to be less. This is going to be the year where I'm supposed to be back, all the way back to my best. And I've already proven in the way I jumped last year that that's possible. And so it's do or die. Like, here you are, show us what you've got. And I feel very capable. I am aiming for the very top. It's obviously not a year where everybody in the world is going to be fully involved, because it's Europeans and Commonwealth. But the thing is, with women's long jumpers, there's always very, very strong competition in both of those champs. And if you can win either of those, then generally you're good enough to medal globally. I can't think really of a situation this year where that's not going to be true. So to kind of keep pushing towards the big goals that I haven't hit yet, yeah, I want to at least be on the podium in both. I'll be mad if I'm not, because again, I think I will have underperformed if I don't do that. But I think I'm at the stage in my career I'm happy to say I want to win.
I love it. I think anyone that's watched you on the television competing, will say the cliche, she wears a heart on her sleeve. And I think, like, you bring so much authenticity to your athletics and your competing, and it's a joy to watch. And to bring that here to us for an interview as well, like, I just like to say thank you. I think it's been lovely to hear a lot of the rationale and sort of the back narrative to where you are now as an athlete, emotionally, physically, and at those championships. And we were already rooting for you, but I think we'll be rooting for you for that. Commonwealth Games, cracking that Commonwealth Games, and maybe the redemption at the Alexander Stadium for the Europeans as well. But thanks, Jazz. You're queen of the long jump, and it's been lovely to have you on.
Thanks, guys. Thank you for having me. It's been a really nice chat.